Hello and welcome to the 5th Subpool. Some more of our veterans here. Let's just go ahead and get this started. First up we have Songjiang versus FGD. These are two of our Chinese competitors. Songjiang bringing a crystalline fleet. I really like these giant penis ships here. They've the really interesting placement of the condensers. In testing though, it actually held up rather well. A lot of it owed to the fact that the thrusters and condensers for crystalline are pretty durable. And we've got these guys with missiles to act as distractors, and these thinner guys offering supplementary DPS. And then over here from FGD we have the anti-Tinkerel, which are a very also unusual sort of design. Not really sure how this is going to work out, but I'm interested in seeing it. We don't usually see so much armor on Tinkerel ships and so few thrusters. But let's see how these two get at it. And yeah, Alfeathers, there's only one Tinkerel in your pool, but it happens to be Splinter, so take that as you will. And you can see the relatively low speed of FGD's Tinkerels might be causing it some problems, as the crystalline missiles, which are not renowned for their high velocity, are racking up all the kills. I don't even think I saw FGD get shot by the condensers yet. I think all that's hit them is the missiles. A good showing by Songjiang now. Songjiang has a history of building these really weird and ornate ships. I really like the way they look. I'm always just a little excited to see his submissions. They're very rarely do you find straight lines on a Songjiang ship. And a lot of points on the board for FGD, but no kills is not promising. Looks like round 1 is going to be very much in favor of Songjiang, and with how this went, I think round 2 is probably going to be similar, but with all the points on the board, that generally means that a lot of Songjiang ships almost died, but didn't quite. So being slightly more accurate could change some things, but crystals, because of the size they can tend to field, crystal ships tend to be pretty durable, and that's kind of what carried them through last time, and will probably be what carries them through this time as well, assuming things go very similarly. You can see the early point lead again going to FGD, but now that the border is coming into play, Songjiang's fleet is getting a chance to catch up. And a kill for FGD. Although it was one of the long condenser ships, which I don't think have any missiles, and I think last time we saw all the damage was dealt by the missile launchers. So Songjiang still has quite the opportunity to to pull this one through. But already this round going much better than the last one for FGD. Yeah, the dicks keep getting shot off, but fortunately they regrow pretty quickly. Actually, it does look like FGD might just take round 2. Ship's doing a much better job of actually connecting and making damage stick as opposed to just glancing. That'd be like the worst party trick though. Hey guys, look what I can do. Thunk. And FGG takes round 2. And that is a lot of missiles. You're probably going to see FGD's ship go down here in a sec. There it is. Generator ruptures are very common on Tinkerel ships. But FGD did manage to get a kill early, which we saw last round worked out really well in the long run for FGD. But as the ships quickly approach the wall again, the wall can also be a nightmare. Never trust a wall. Yeah. 3-round matches with Tinkerels against non-Tinkerels tend to be pretty one-sided. But I would also argue that neither of these fleets is particularly conventional. They're both highly unusual. Alright, have a good one, Terabot. As for who's surrounding who, I believe those are oblique attack tactics. Pretty sure that's how that works. Does look like FGD might just take round 2 though, unless something weird happens in the next few seconds. Which has happened before, and against Tinkerel certainly can happen again, but FGD is in the more advantageous position. Yeah. I'm playing counter moves before you even knew I took a turn. And FGD takes the match. So up next we have drills. And drills is kind of these things we've seen before. They serve rather well. Although I think these are upgraded versions of them. But this sort of ship, these distractors, Here we have a mortar rusher. We'll see how that goes. I don't put a lot of faith in those. This guy is torpedoes and proton beams. This guy, when he stays on target, hurts a lot. I did run this through testing a little bit. This guy is missile kiter, but he's got a lot of plasma cannons too. It's kind of just all over the place. So we got here, mine layer. But the drill staple is this sort of flagship. But Drills, as you can see, has embraced hyperstacking finally. He's got basically one of his distractors embedded in his flagship now, and there's a bunch of little armor pieces helping protect the turret pods. I think that will probably bode pretty well for him. But then again, crystal plasma condensers are devastating weapons. And FGD's penis ships are bringing no shortage of condensers to the field. But Drill's off to a very strong start, taking out one of the larger ships from FGD, or from Songjiang almost immediately. The bulk of crystal DPS generally comes from plasma condensers, which that hyperstacked armor will work perfectly against because there's no splash damage at all on those. The missiles, of course, do splash damage, but in this fleet, the bulk of the raw damage output is going to come from the condensers. So I think that flagship is going to do very well for Drills here. You can see it did lose some of its plasma cannon pods, but they'll regrow in time. Terrans regrow faster than anybody else anyway. And yeah, Drill's flagship is actually pretty fast. Like, these giant yellow things back here are just thrusters. But he's also got them positioned so that there's no more than 2 thrusters connected in sequence, so that if they do get shot off, they regenerate pretty quickly. Because, you know, thrusters regenerate much more slowly than armor. So if you can, doing the thruster stacks with no more than 2 per stack helps regenerate them much more quickly. It's one of those, you know, planning for things to go awry, helping recover, and maybe even bringing back some wins. Although this time everything seems to have gone pretty swimmingly for Drill's fleet. Half expecting an ass kicking to come in here in just a second. Yeah, here it comes. And Drills takes round 1. Yeah, Drills might stand a fair chance against the Tinkerel too. The hyperstacked armor generally works rather well against Tinkerel as well, because Tinkerel have no splash damage weapons to appreciate, or no appreciable splash damage weapons. They have the rocket drones, but if you're using rocket drones seriously, then you should probably go talk to a psychiatrist. And yeah, overall I'm thinking the Deserts of Kharak music is working out pretty nice. But I've got a few other ideas for music for further tournaments. Yeah, the battleship is struggling, but again, don't forget, like, this armor is all 2 and 3 layers thick, which is now regenerating. It's almost full. Yeah, the battleship is fine. It's fine. I don't know why you even doubted it. Yeah, Drills has been... I feel like the consistency with which Drills does well hasn't been paying off as much as it should. I think a lot of times he would end up getting smashed in a really nasty pool and not make it to the champion pool. But I don't know. I don't know that he's won a tournament yet, but who knows? Maybe this one. There's a lot of Tinkerol and his fleet is pretty quick and pretty durable, so that might work out. Also, this kiter here from Drills, you can see is remarkably well behaved with the proton beam. Yeah, just lay in there with all the damage. Use all the violence, and Drills takes the match. Next up, we have Song Jiang up against Quan, who this ship should look familiar. And before I said this little spike out the back was partly to help with balance, but mostly, as they reported, was the spike in the back is to cause it to not flatline up against the boundary wall. It kind of forces the ship to turn one way or the other, which in turn makes the ship have to do something. This guy is just a spongy distractor. I forget what's on this. I think it's just a bunch of mortars and proton beams. This guy has an antimatter, a bunch of plasma cannons, and again, the plasma cannons you can see are all offset from the center. The idea being that when a ship fires, it aims directly at the core. So if the ship that's shooting at this guy fires at the core from the front, it'll go right between the plasmas, and the plasmas can continue to fire. Which is a rather good tactic that we see. You saw it in Drill's fleet, but I didn't mention it. But we see it in a lot of the Chinese flagships. And yeah, fireworks for the new year. Actually, use fireworks. I don't need an excuse. Anytime we want fireworks, I think we should be able to have fireworks. And yeah, buttlock is literally Satan unless you're my ship Hate and Discontent, which absolutely needs buttlock in order to function. It does look like Song Jiang's going to get the better of this one though as the flagship goes down, but the flagship, as you can see, was only worth about 4k. I think the bulk of Quan's points are in that kiter. I think that's probably an 8k ship or somewhere around there. Yeah, Hate and Discontent is Satan. That is a ship that will clear a field. I just need to figure out how to control it. If I can get it to actually turn and fight effectively, then I'll have perfected it. But all attempts at trying to tame the beast have only made the beast less lethal, and that's not good either. The kiter's still holding on though. You can see it has plenty of burst lasers, and the burst lasers have no problem dealing with the incoming missiles from Song Jiang's fleet. And that's going to be a bit of a problem because other than that, the crystals don't have an answer for kiters. So the only real hope Song Jiang has is that Quan's kiter decides to disrespect. And so far so good for Quan. And the buttlock triangle coming in handy here. It already touched the boundary wall once. And look at that little ship go for Quan on the left. That is a brave ship. And it is racking up the kills. Those proton swords doing what proton swords do. And Quan takes the match. Although I believe that was on points, but nonetheless, a win is a win. Yeah, the Chinese competitors have really mastered this sort of build, this guy here. I think a lot of it just boils down to the fact that, I don't know if they still do, but I know that for a while the Chinese reassembly community would have a tournament every couple weeks, and it was always a 1 versus 1 tournament. And so they really mastered certain builds, like the dueling tank rule, the dueling kiter, stuff like that. And yeah, the sword motor ship, I kind of dismissed it at first, but it is definitely earning its play, or well, it did last round. This round it apparently got wrecked. But now we see Quan's kiter. Can it be a superhero? Because it kind of needs to be. Rippin' pepperonis, indeed. Ah, damn it, I should have ordered pizza. But I didn't. Only a minute on the clock. I don't know that Quan's going to be able to put up the points that he's going to need to pull this off. It has to get a very lucky torpedo strike or something. But with all those missiles, as you guys mentioned in chat, with all those missiles, it's probably not happening. And there's the triangle doing what it needs to do, preventing the ship from butt locking. And you know they say all feathers. The best offense or the best defense is a good offense, right? That's how that works. Ooh, that is bad for the kiter though. Took some hits there and lost nearly 1,000 points in the like 3 shots that the condensers got off. Condensers are nasty. But here we are in round 3. Both fleets showing that they really want this. They really want it. But can the murder orb do the murder orb thing? Or is it going to get pinched again? With the murder orb doing what it's supposed to be doing, and the tank's still alive actually, I'm feeling like Quan is probably going to pull this one off. Well, there are 2 orbs, but one is a murder orb, one is just or actually no, they might both be murder orbs. I don't know. They had a different glow to them, I think. One might have 1 mortar, one might have 2 or something like that. Or maybe they both have 2, I don't remember. But it does look like the murder orbs have been killed, but at the same time, Songjiang is out of missile ships too, which means the kiter for Quan can actually do its job correctly. And that might... I'm pretty sure... yeah, this is done. Well done, Quan. Yeah, and the tank is alive, and you can kind of see how they kind of fire directly at the core, and managed to completely miss the plasma cannons in the process, and Quan takes the match. So next up we have FGD up against Drills, and FGD did pretty well against Song Jiang. And a large part of that, I think, is owed to the fact that Song Jiang just couldn't get close, but Drill's fleet is a bit faster, which I think is going to pose a bit of a problem for FGD. Although at the same time, charging in like that does mean they're going to take the brunt of those cannons. But if that battleship gets close enough, I think FGD is going to start hemorrhaging ships quick. Jill still has quite a few ships left on the field, but having a hard time so far. The battleship, as you saw, is kind of getting pushed around by the incoming bullets from FGD's fleet. Synchro ships are rather uniquely capable in that their guns hit hard enough and fast enough that they are capable of pushing targets around, which is kind of a unique trait. But yeah, those torp ships from Drills are doing a very good job. They're behaving themselves quite a bit. And you might have run the 5th subpool now, Richter. And Drills is taking the point lead, which bodes pretty poorly for FGD for round 1 at the very least. Yeah, it's close for now, but Drills took round 1. And that one, I don't know how much different it really can go. Like, FGD almost got a few kills that he didn't quite seal, especially on that battleship. But other than that, I don't know. I don't even think the battleship did the bulk of the work there. I think it just ended up sponging a bunch of damage. Still very useful, but I don't even know. Do not even know. You can see again FGD building up a huge lead and doing a ton of damage to the battleship, but the battleship is still alive. Meanwhile, where are the torp ships? Kind of lost track of them. Because the torp ships were the ones that were causing all the problems for FGD's fleet to begin with. Yeah, fellas, that sounds like a neat experiment. And for anyone who's listening and not watching, Alfeather's idea is to place the core of a battleship off the center of mass, because then any incoming Tinkerel hits would kind of rock the ship to the side since they're all aimed at the core, and cause it to have to burrow through more of the armor. Which, that could be neat. Certainly something worth taking a look at the very least. And the battleship for drills in this round here has taken a beating. But it is repairing, and now that it's already lost those pieces once, it isn't really going to give up too many more points. And again, as I mentioned, the Terrans rebuild faster than anybody else. And one of the torpedo ships from drills just went down, which I feel like that is very undesirable for drills. Battleship getting in close, doing some work. Trying to catch up. Still a minute on the clock. If Drills has a few of these ships kind of pinned in one of the corners. If it can kill them, then it will certainly be in the game. But at the same time, the other half of FGD's fleet has fled to the other side. The battleship overshot its target. I think the big problem Drills has is that his fleet is all brawl, for the most part. Like, he's got the torpedo kiters with some range, but the bulk of his fleet has to get close to the enemy. And that gives FGD a lot of time to get a lot of free damage. I think if he had a couple of dedicated anti-kiters, he'd be doing a lot better, but FGD is going to take this one on points. And next up we have FGD up against Quan. Quan, before we saw, really relies on that kiter and the murder orbs, which I think are going to be a problem for Quan in this one. Goes back to that whole Tinkerel being the masters of long-range combat thing. The kiter and the murder orb are doing some work though, but with both orbs down, or with one of the orbs and the kiter down, and the other orb in a precarious position, I think this one, I don't know, Quan's kiters did a lot more damage than I was really expecting them to, though, to be fair. Yeah, FGD's racking up wins, but none of them have really been particularly clean wins. They've all been very close. And that might just be that the pool is a very tough pool, but it also might just be that he's just going to have a whole lot of really close fights. Yeah, basically, for the top 2 thing, I really want there to be at least 12 ships, or 12 fleets in the champion bracket. And FGD takes round 1. Quan's fleet did a really good job in the beginning. I'm not sure if that was an anomaly. One of the murder orbs is already down. Kiter doing some work, though. Oh, and the Kiter's down. So, this is not looking promising for Quan's fleet. I think we're going to see more or less a repeat of last round. But I want there to be at least 12 fleets in the champion bracket. And so if we get 12 fleets through ties, then I'm going to only have the winners and ties go through. But with 7 pools, if we get distinct winners in each pool, then I'm going to take the first 2 from each. And so far we haven't had any ties for first. So it's this might well be the closest we've had to a farmer in the champions ever. Yeah, Quan's doing some work. I think that antimatter on the tank is causing some untold harm. And oh man, one of the murder orbs was still alive. But now that the murder orbs are dead and the tank is driving backwards, which it's not great at, mind you. But you can see FGD ships, they hit really hard, but they need the enemy to chase them. Their uptime is pretty not great. Yeah, these are highly unconventional tank ships. Yeah, they're carrying around a lot of armor, and Tinkerel armor's pretty bad. They also have relatively few thrusters compared to other Tinkerel ships, and so the two can just kind of compound on each other. And Quan takes round 2 on points. Wrecked. And going into round 3 here. Let's see if the murder orbs can hold on. And they cannot, turns out. So this round is not looking great for Quan, but last time the tank did manage to somehow actually catch stuff. I don't really know. But here we are. Yeah, if these were people, I'm sure or this was under the player control, I'm sure the kiter and the orbs would wait until things were engaging the tank and attack from a different angle. But, you know, the AI is different. Yeah, I've seen Tinkerel die to torpedoes before. It's not terribly common, but it does happen. Although a lot of the time it ends up being because the Tinkerel just got dumb. It'll like charge at stuff where there happens to be a bunch of torpedoes, or there'll just be a bunch of torpedoes on the field. Yeah, I think all of FGD's wins so far have been very close 2-1 matches, which might not bode well in the future. Tinkerel usually win by a landslide, especially considering that Quan's fleet was all kiters and slow ships, which should be a pretty easy cleanup. But their blasts do hit very hard. And next we've got drills up against Quan, and FGD with the 3 wins is advancing either way. See how these things go. The ships from FGD. Yeah, the ships from FGD are made to kill Tinkerel killers. And Quan putting up a lot of points here, but I think a lot of that is because the battleship is trying to chase murder orbs instead of shooting things that it can actually reasonably engage. Come on, torpedoes. That was a shitty shot, torpedoes. But I think Quan's big ship... Yeah, there it is. I was just gonna say, I think Quan's big ship's about to go down. Quan has a point lead, but now it's all up to this murder orb and this kiter. Which we've seen the murder orb and the kiter do some pretty impressive things before. But the murder orb I don't think is going to be able to deal with the battleship at all. The kiter, however, is like half of the point investment from Quan's fleet. And I don't know that Drills has an answer for it. since Jules needs to get into knife fight range to really function. But maybe he'll prove me wrong. I've doubted before and been wrong. I mean, they both have swords. Burst lasers might work, missiles. You would need them on angles so they don't fire directly at the enemy. I think the big thing with burst lasers is that the AI thinks of them as DPS rather than alpha strike, and so they'll run in and get lasered pretty hard. And, you know, when it comes to raw DPS, burst lasers are pretty bad, but that's not why you use them on your ships. And honestly, this is a pretty solid all-around pool, though. This is the 5th pool. Wrapping it up here. This is actually the last fight of the 5th pool. But I am gonna take a moment break after this pool, let somebody go relieve themselves, since I'd rather him do that outside than on my floor. And it'll give me a chance to stretch and whatnot. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one.